honestly, if you want to know my philosophy, it's just to do the work and that everything else will come.
Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with yours truly, Waylon Lewis, and I am super excited today. I always say I'm excited, but I never mean it. Usually I'm really bored and too cool for my guests, but Maggie Doyne is one of my all-time idols. So I'm super excited, Maggie. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Waylon. This is awesome. I've been a long time Elephant Journal fan over here, too.
Have you really been?
Yes.
That blows my mind. So yeah, one of my editors like a year or two ago, or maybe 5 years ago, I feel like time's flying. You're now 20, how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. So you started your whole journey, which we'll get into in a moment, when you were 19, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so you're almost at your 10-year anniversary. Your entire adult life has been what we're going to get into. So Rachel's telling me to bow, so we better begin this thing officially. So because I'm coming from Boulder, Colorado, I grew up in this Buddhist family, we have to start with something kind of weird and spiritual, vaguely spiritual. So we start these with a bow of mutual respect, and viewers, if you'd like to join in, it's simply just a bow of respect and beginning something and a reminder of your mission, viewers, in your life, and Maggie's mission, which we'll get into. So Maggie, thank you so much. And then instead of, often we'll begin with a moment of meditation or a prayer, a moment of silence, depending on the guest. But Maggie, you have something special that you do with your children at your school, right?
Mm-hmm. With our kids, we always start family meetings and assemblies with 3 ohms.
So could you tell us how to do that, and we could do it with you?
Okay, so you just take your fingers like this, your index, and join it with your thumb, and you can hold your palms outwards facing to accept the positivity, and this is really a prayer for universal peace, and you just say Om and hold it out for as long as I do. Okay, ready?
We do 3.
1, 2, 3. Om.
Mm. Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks. Namaste.
So that's what so your journey started with this little girl who would carry this huge pile of stuff. I forgot what you said, 65 kilograms or something. And
That's
she
right.
would say, or was it another little girl? But she would say Namaste BD or something, some nickname to you every day.
That's right.
So yeah, maybe just, I'm sure you've never told anyone this story before, but how did your whole journey with Blink Now begin?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. It definitely did begin with looking eye to eye, face to face with a few little girls. But yeah, one of them was on the side of a dry riverbed breaking rocks and picking through the garbage. And she looked at me with her beautiful eyes and just said, Namaste, Didi. And Didi means big sister. And it got me thinking, because here was this little child amidst so much suffering and so much difficulty, and she just looked at me with a really big smile. And yeah, throughout my journey and my travels through Nepal, I continued to meet children, and that was really the underlying theme: extreme suffering and difficulty, child laborers, child porters, grief and sadness, but also this happiness and joy. And as a young 18, 19-year-old on a journey, I was struggling with how how to wrestle with that and how to kind of make sense of it all in a world that was so different to the world that I grew up in. And it got my wheels really turning, and eventually I looked at this one girl carrying this load on a road, and something clicked, and I was like, that girl who I'm staring at is me, and I'm her, and we're the same. And it spiritual or religious, it was just like, wow, we are one and the same, and look at how our realities are so different, and how can I make her life better? And that was it.
Yeah, it's one thing I really admire about what you've done is it seems somewhat non-conceptual. Like often sort of social activism will sort of be like, you know, white people going to a developing nation and saying, you should be like us, and trying to help, and it's good intentions, but it seems almost like foisted upon people. And you, maybe from the beginning of that moment, it seems like you're all one and the same and one family, and you really, like your entire board that is locals, many of them aren't literate, right, but they're community leaders. And so at the time when you met that girl, you had just come over from New Jersey, right? You had graduated high school?
Exactly. I decided sort of last minute. I was that typical kid that was growing up in suburban New Jersey where everybody goes to college and you follow this path to success. And at the very last moment, I just woke up and was like, I can't do it. I can't make this huge investment of time and money and everything was external when I don't know enough about what's inside of me. And the only thing I knew to do was to travel and to step outside of the box and take some time for myself. It was almost like a rite of passage, just a journey. And it started out not at all with plans to do anything other than take some time off.
Right.
And through a series of events, I ended up first in India and then trekking through the Himalayas of Nepal.
And you went with a friend, I believe, right? A girlfriend from high school or something. You went to this super remote village, right?
Exactly. Well, so we started out in India, and I was placed in a particular program. I started out with a gap year. And in northeastern India, I didn't know it at the time, but just across the northeastern border was Nepal, and there had been a 13-year civil war going on. So we were meeting sort of like the back end of children and migrant workers and refugees fleeing across the border through the Himalayas and into India. And so I was seeing this, and I was seeing what was happening, and I didn't know anything about Nepal. I didn't know why. I didn't know that there was a civil war. I didn't know about the Maoists, and I just started asking questions. And this one child in the refugee community at Ramana's Garden in India was from Nepal, and we decided to go back together and to take that journey.
So you get to this beautiful, stunningly beautiful village in the middle of, far away from towns and cities, right? And it had been devastated by the Civil War, right? People had lost their homes and all that.
Exactly.
And then, how do you get from there, which is still kind of relatable for a lot of us, to maybe we can skip forward to what you're doing today. For those who don't know, what are you doing like this week? What's your situation?
Well, I had a little bit of savings, like I was telling you. The travel really shook me to my core and made me question things. And I had $5,000 saved up of babysitting money. Long story short, I convinced my parents to wire it over to Nepal. There was a piece of property that just happened to be for sale for $5,000. I bought it, and I really saw through my time in Nepal and through traveling that there was a disconnect, and if we want to make the world better, we need to raise children, and they need to have a home, and they need to have their most basic human needs met. So I built a home with the community there. Obviously, I asked everybody for their buy-in and asked them what they saw as the needs in their community were and in the village, and everybody said the same thing: education and a home for children. And just to make everybody kind of aware of the orphan crisis that we're in right now, There are 80 million children worldwide, and 1 million children estimated in Nepal
Who
to be
are
orphaned.
who are orphans.
Yeah, and
And
so I
many of
just,
the orphans, like those girls you would meet on the side of the road, were already in child labor situations, right?
mhm,
Or worse sometimes.
right, and that's the at-risk population there because they really don't have an advocate, and they're more of a target, and obviously just to survive, they get themselves into bad and really difficult situations. So
Yeah.
I I then just had this vision to create a beautiful home and a beautiful childhood and enroll children into school. And today, fast forward 10 years, I'm the mom to 51 kids. Uh, and we run a little school and a free open clinic for medical care and a women's center. And it's this whole
Right.
huge tree with lots of branches and really a community of Nepalese working to make the situation better.
And you have, maybe I'm confused on the numbers, but you have hundreds of children doing something, right?
Oh
Or
yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, our primary focus is really to keep kids within their family unit if at all possible. So
Hmm.
just because you're an orphan doesn't mean you should leave your big sister or your auntie's house. And that was in my studies. That was sort of one issue that I saw was orphanages filling up with kids who could very well stay with their families if they had the support. So our school serves as a day program where children can come in for food, medical care, really great education, and be supported within their family unit and then go home at the end of the day. And that relieves like the excess burden from a family with say 6 daughters who can't send every single kid to school, or an old grandmother with 2 little kids that she's totally overwhelmed with. And yeah, that program has 350 kids, and 51 of them live with us full time.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe so then maybe rewinding a little bit, I feel like I know your story pretty well because I'm honestly like that video that I first watched when one of our staff people blogged it. Um, you know, I've seen like hundreds of TED Talks and all these things that are, you know, they have the profound music that makes you think it's going to be super inspirational. But your video somehow was just completely, it was probably the most positive, you mentioned positivity, like the most positive thing I've
Mm,
pretty much ever watched. And I think it was so inspiring because it was, you met these girls, it was very real. It wasn't some sort of philosophical, like, I want to help and I'm going to start a Kickstarter. It was like, for $8 or $13, I can't remember what it was, $18, you sent that first girl, right, to
mhm.
school. You didn't have start your own school or anything yet. You just sent her to school, and from day, you know, like the before picture was her carrying. I'm kind of mixing it up probably, but you know, like carrying
Yeah.
child labor, carrying up all these rocks or whatever. And then the after picture was her in a tie going to school and learning to be, you know, to actually be able to have a good life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what that's what I was seeing as a young person. It was like, wait,
Yeah.
a million orphan kids, oh, you can enroll them into school. What are we missing here? You know, like this is not that simple. Kids need love. How have we not cracked this in so many years of foreign aid and so many years of development?
Yeah.
How are we not there yet? And how are these happening? I have to start now, and I have to start with me. And it was very simple. It was like, all right, I'm going to put her into school,
Yeah.
and then it became addicting, and then there was another and another and another. And I mean, this stuff is sad, right? Like, it's really hard to talk about. It is really sad, but it's also so amazing when it can be fixed. And like my job now is to convince everybody that this is possible. Like we can totally alleviate human suffering and extreme world poverty. And it just takes all of us putting our heads together, putting our hands in it, and doing the job that we need to get done right now.
So I'm all over the place. I'm being a horrible host, but I'm just so inspired. So if people go to blinknow.org, they can donate. And if they give like, you know, maybe give me a couple amounts. Like if I give $50 or $100 or something, what happens with that?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the bottom, and 25 cents feeds a child. I mean, this is the most food deficit region of the world, and it feeds a child a huge heaping plate of rice and beans and fresh vegetables that we grow in our garden. We're subsistence farmers over there. And then, yeah, $100 buys a child a full-on school uniform with their belt and their tie and a backpack with a full set of books, and helps them with us enroll them into school. And yeah, every dollar really does go a long way. That's one positive thing about working in Nepal.
Right. And yeah, so you started supporting. I think what is sort of magical about your story is you went from, a life of comparative privilege that many of us have here in America or in the West, and you went there and you saw the suffering, and then you saw how easy it was, maybe deceptively easy, how easy it was to help one girl and then maybe help 5 girls. I think then you funded like 5 girls after that.
It just became addicting. It was like, all right, well, if 5, why not 10? Why not this? Why not? And it just grew and it grew and it grew.
Right.
And yeah, it did start to get easier and easier.
So, and then at some point you find yourself on the phone with your parents at like 2 a.m. at night saying, send me my lifetime savings from babysitting so I can start a school. I mean, that's a huge leap from just, kind of throwing money at a problem, which is really good. I mean, that's wonderful you did that. But to actually getting intimately involved and spending 10 years of your life and,
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't go back. I just, knowing what I knew, I just couldn't go back. And I mean, part of what I wanted to do was say, this can be done if I can do it. And I had a vision. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't just the babysitting. It was finding mentors and reading every single book on poverty alleviation and looking at projects that worked and projects that failed. But yeah, I had a vision of a beautiful children's home where everybody coexisted, and Nepali people coming together and raising their children like they are so good at, and it being a model that was based on love and caring and communal living, and everybody really raising each other up, and children just having their needs met and having a family, and it really worked. It's a very special place, and that vision of kids swinging on the swing set and jumping rope and working in the garden, it just all came into light, just one step at a time.
Yeah. So maybe how did you then, you talked about how you actually had a plan and started studying, and how did you then engage with the wider world? I mean, I know I can see it on your back wall there, you've had some pretty amazing media support, from the first gift of, what was it, $20,000 from a relatively surprising source?
Maybelline.
Yeah.
Cosmo Girl, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you engage? I mean, you've done that really skillfully, and I feel like with a lot of joy and integrity, instead of kind of self-promotion on some level. How did you engage? I mean, you're on the cover of New York Times Sunday Magazine back there. How did you then connect, like even with your town in New Jersey, right? You went back and kind of fundraised.
Well, I'd like to say that I had a lot to do with that happening. But honestly, if you want to know my philosophy, it's just to do the work, and that everything else will come. We never had a PR person. I never actively sought out. Cosmo Girl was something that one of my best friends submitted. It was like 300 words on why you're making a difference. My best friend submitted it with a photo for this makeover. But everything else, it flowed. And I was there, and I was raising my kids, and I was bathing them, and I was building the project and working with the people. And everything just came to us slowly. Like, people wouldn't believe me. I mean, if I say that everything that's come our way has been a huge surprise. And what I realized in sharing the story, and yes, I blog, and we're on Facebook and social media, and I share what's in my heart. But what I realized is that people are starving for this kind of message. They're starving to know that we can do this and that it can be done, because we're told that it's too complex. There's always going to be poverty. There's always going to be this, and It's just not true. So I stand up on my soapbox and I say, like, this is possible. Look, watch me. I'm doing it. Like,
Yeah.
we're doing it. This community is doing it. And all of the awards and the recognition, I have been so blessed and so lucky and just blown away by that. But it really came from just being there and raising my kids and doing the work that needed to be done.
And then not only does it, you can fix stuff, but it goes from super depressing to so joyful. Like, I watched some of your YouTube videos of your like school assemblies or something,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
maybe they're like dance performances. I don't really, special days at your school anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
you can tell it's this whole rowdy, fun, beautiful, arty kind of community, and it feels so much like a high school in New Jersey or something. It just felt
Yep.
so relatable, like happy families and, you know, children all excited, like they'd had too much sugar or something. It was super,
Yeah.
yeah, normal, human.
And don't get me wrong, like, we have our issues. We have our child trafficking. We have our days that are really hard, but mostly when people walk through the gates and they walk through the front door, they just see joyous, happy kids, because that's what it's about. And we continually just fill them with those joyful experiences and that love, and they heal each other. And yeah, we're all about having a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
and Lake Valley is like just such a magical place. And yeah, that's exactly those YouTube videos that you've seen. That's exactly how it is. It's like the happiest little place on earth.
So, you know, I think a lot about, as an environmentalist, I think a lot about climate change. It's very analogous. People look at climate change, including myself, and say, it's so vast, it's such a huge problem with so many different aspects that are all interconnected. How can we possibly do anything? And I read some article, maybe it was that New York Times one. I read a bunch of articles about you, and one of them was saying, you know, there's almost this like philosophical argument, like, if you can't deal with the overall problem, why do you even try to fix part of the problem? Because it's a systemic problem. And I think that's kind of what I find so inspiring, is you said, well, yeah, there might be this systemic thing going on, but I can help this girl, this real human being, right now.
Yeah, and eventually enough of us are going to have those similar awakenings in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's the environment or saving the whales or the bees or,
Right.
you know, whatever. There's so many things to care about. It's so overwhelming. But when enough of us have those moments where we realize, you know, truly that we can have an impact, that there's going to be a tipping point, and we're going to see these things start to melt away. And what remains is human connection and us being a better human family here. And I'm choosing to remain really hopeful about that and focus on the positivity and the change and all the good that's happening in the world, because what else are we going to do? Like, just cry into our pillows every night?
Well, I think the alternative actually is, you know, good people might cry into their pillows, but I feel like, you know, I'm very much in the business world, and I feel like the default of the business world is to not, frankly, really care. Like, it's almost to suppress and to say, well, you need to make money, and if you have to make money, you got to compromise, and making money is super important. And there's not a lot of conversation about, you know, the other two parts of the triple bottom line, people and planet. It's all about, I feel like a lot of people, honestly, I was just ranting about this last night at you know, with some of my staff. I think it was last night. Anyway, it was recently. I was saying so many people don't care, and it's so heartbreaking. You know, so not to be negative, but I feel like there are a lot of people who care, and for those people, it's important to stay positive, because otherwise you get drowned in, you can get really sad and heartbroken just continually. But for a lot of people out there who maybe are just trying to have good lives and, you know, pay their bills and kind of are trying not to slow down. There's this great video by Louis C.K. You probably know him.
I love him.
Yeah, where he talks about how he like finally slows down. He pulls over to the side of the road and he just allows himself to feel that uncomfortable feeling, and it winds up being overwhelming grief. And then immediately after, it's too much. Immediately after, he feels overwhelming joy because he finally opens his heart, you know? And I feel like so many of us, including myself, are so speedy. And then we see a story like yours. I think that's why you're, meeting the Dalai Lama and, Cory Booker and on the cover of the New York Times, is because you're a symbol to people of someone who slowed down. You could have just seen that girl on the side of the road and said, oh, wow, what a bummer, and then gone to lunch, And you could have talked about that girl for a few days and then moved on, But now it's been 9 years, right?
Yeah, with no plans of leaving. And honestly, I feel like the richest lady on earth. And I think those people who are going through their own process of, it's hard. And you know what? It's not, there's a lot of distraction and there's a lot of ways that we can be pulled in another way or forced, fear of something else. But I'd like to think that everyone will come to a place where we realize that this material stuff is not, it's not going to fill us. We're not going to take it with us.
Yeah.
And so all we have left at the end of the day is caring for each other and caring for human beings. And it's just going to take enough people talking about that and getting rid of all of the stuff standing in the way. And yeah, I mean, that's why I'm talking to you. That's why we have to keep doing this work and sharing and spreading the love.
Yeah. Yeah, it is sort of like a, sorry, go ahead.
I just said we don't really have a choice, right?
Well, we don't if we actually want to enjoy our lives and have a wonderful planet to live on. But, a lot of us kind of, without any sense of condescension, I mean, I go through tons of speediness in my life. But a lot of us are really just thinking about kind of, our LinkedIn resume and paying the bills, and, that's fine. But there is, I think it's such a cliche because it's so true, that if you really focus on material possessions and being speedy, you never slow down to smell the roses or let yourself feel that uncomfortableness in your heart and relax with that, like people can through yoga or exercise, then we never open up. And anyway, usually I'm talking about all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess my personal request to anyone watching this would be to watch. We'll link your other video. What was that? It was sort of TED-ish, but it's
called the Do Lectures.
Do Lectures. It was so good.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's like TED Talks, but in a little tent yurt on a farm. With a very small group of people.
It was awesome. Yeah, it had such a good feeling, that entire conversation. I think it was so nice to hear a profound, inspiring talk from someone without that like nauseating soundtrack in the beginning, like TED Talks. You're about to hear something profound. Yeah, it's just for people to slow down. Like the other day I was rushing around. I mean, I rush on my bicycle, so it's not quite as, I try and slow myself down during the day, but I stopped and it was a beautiful day. It was snowing and I just stopped by this pond on our campus over here, the University of Colorado. And it was so beautiful. And I was so speedy. I was like, had to get somewhere to do something. And I don't even remember what now. It's obviously not that important. And I just slowed down. I looked at the lake for like 20 seconds. And then I was like, okay, I gotta go. And then I had to stop myself again. Oh boy. All right, so we're back from our commercial break. Our sponsor, always, our generous sponsor is Monsanto. Thank you so much. So we have a special little guest here. Who is this little cutie?
This is Robbie.
Hey, Robbie. Oh, someone likes his mama.
And he's number 51. Say
number
hi,
51. So how did number 51 come into Kopila and into your life?
Well, number 51 was my youngest intake ever. He came in at 2 months, and he was really struggling with malnutrition, and he was starved. And
if you look at his cheeks now, he looks like he's
chubby. Yeah. He's chubby. He's just packing on the pounds over here. And yeah, we've had a rough road. We spent a couple months in the NICU and really had to reset his system. But he's doing great, and he's really thriving, and he's my little love cake.
And you actually adopted him. You're his legal guardian?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, with every kid, you have to go through that process and the paperwork, um, and it takes a while, but it's done.
Yeah. So he came to you. He was pretty emaciated, right?
Yeah, yeah, in a big way.
Yeah.
He's one of the saddest cases I've seen in a while.
Because why? What was going on?
Well, he lost his mom and dad and didn't have breast milk, and he was being cared for by his sisters, but they were really young, and imagine just struggling up in the Himalayas without a bottle or a way to feed him. So we felt really lucky that he found his way to us with his sister, who was the hero in all of this.
Aw.
Getting you back.
Your sister is at your school as well?
Yeah, actually he has 4 sisters, and we've been able to successfully place all of them, which is good. Yeah, yeah.
So I think, as a final wrap up, basically, I just wanted to remind kind of myself and my friends who maybe will watch this that even though you're this great hero of mine and you're on the cover of the New York Times and all this stuff, you're just a human like any of us, and we all go through speediness, and we all go through not, caring but not knowing what to do about it. And I think it's important to me that we don't put you on a pedestal in a way and say, oh, some people are going to do a lot of good in the world, and the rest of us, we're going to worry about what we're going to have for lunch. Because we can all, whether we contribute to Copila, blinknow.org right there, over there, or, find our own way, like you were saying with the bees or the whales. I mean, it's limitless what we can do.
It is.
Helping out our elderly. He's a big fan of your face.
He hasn't seen me all day, so
Aww.
Right over there to your friends.
Yeah, well, we never get to see Maggie. Yeah, share your mama. So, anyway, I just wanted to thank you so much, Maggie, for coming on Elephant's Little Show.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah. So maybe, so we could bow. Reminder of our mission, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as always, you can subscribe to SoundCloud, youtube.com/Waylon H. Lewis, or see us on elephantjournal.com, and go to blinknow.org. It's a gorgeous website. And you can see more photos of Bobby.